Coming up on Network Africa. 3 people rescued in Egypt after a tourist boat capsized in the Red Sea. Libyan military releases images of what it says are over 300 detained migrants after their arrest in the desert. Plus, anti-government activists arrested in Uganda demanding opposition leader Kizza Besigye's release. Hello and welcome to the program today. I am Layo Olarinde. We start today in Egypt, where 3 people have been found alive after a tourist boat capsized in the Red Sea. This brings the total number of rescued people to 31. 4 bodies have also been recovered while search and rescue operations continue for the other missing people, among whom are 2 Britons. The Sea Story tour boat left port on Sunday for a 5-day diving trip with about 44 people on board. It's said to have sank on Monday. Soldiers in Libya have detained more than 300 migrants who were crossing the desert and trying to make it to the shores of the Mediterranean. The military released images of what it says are detained migrants. Groups of men, women and children were made to sit on the ground as the soldiers surrounded them. Libya is a major point of departure for people from the Middle East and Africa aiming to reach Europe. Many are escaping war or poverty, and they employ smugglers to help them negotiate treacherous deserts and sea routes. According to the UN Refugee Agency, roughly 38,000 people have arrived in Italy and Malta from Libya this year alone. Here in Nigeria, the First Lady of Zamfara State, Hajiya Huriya Dauda Lawal, has officially flagged off the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign in the state. The global campaign, which runs annually from November the 25th to December the 10th, aims to raise awareness and drive action to end all forms of violence against women and girls. The 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an international campaign aimed at raising awareness. Addressing a press conference to flag off the 16 Days Activism Against Gender-Based Violence in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital, the First Lady of the state, Huriya Dauda Lawal, emphasized the urgent need for collective efforts to combat gender-based violence in Zamfara state. She called on stakeholders, including government agencies, civil society organizations, and traditional leaders to intensify efforts in creating safe spaces for women and girls.
This year's 16 Days of Activism, which begins today and will end on the 10th of December, offers us another opportunity to reaffirm our collective resolve to protect the rights, dignity, and safety of women, girls, and all vulnerable individuals in our communities.
Key dignitaries at the event include representatives from the Ministry of Women Affairs, Justice, the traditional rulers, and international development partners. In their goodwill messages, stakeholders pledged their support and commitment to initiatives that protect the rights of women.
We will ensure that these girls know their rights, knows when to say no, have confidence, and also do their skills, new life skills. And those victims also, inshallah, will support in ensuring that the traumatic effect will not be lasting in their memory.
One of the issues we want to advocate to you, Your Excellency, is the aspect of strengthening responses to survivors of gender-based violence in respect to medical services. Because right now, in General Hospital in Zamfara State, we don't have any free services to survive us.
So many other stakeholders that we have to work together, not only the police, not only the Hisba, not only the Attorney General of the states. So this thing has to be taken with all serious so that we can see that the implementation is fully activated.
The First Lady urges citizens to break the culture of silence surrounding gender-based violence, adding that violence against persons prohibition law will be translated to local language for the understanding of the local populace. Joining us for more discussions on gender-based violence is Executive Secretary, Global Youth Consortium Against Female Genital Mutilation, Dr. Costley Aderibigbe Saba. Dr. Aderibigbe Saba joins us virtually from Houston, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you, Layo, for having me.
Well, let's begin with your thoughts on the improvements that you've perhaps seen in Nigeria. Would you say we've seen any improvement in the country, since we started the campaign against gender-based violence?
Thank you very much, Layo. It's very important for the world to know that the 16 days of activism is a very symbolic moment where, the world comes together to speak out against all forms of gender-based violence against women and girls, either in private or public life. But not only women and girls are affected by GBV, men are also affected by gender-based violence. Yes, the campaign to end gender-based violence in Nigeria started decades ago. In fact, before my generation, was born, before just centuries ago, women have been speaking out, fighting for their rights. But then coming to the advocacy space I started my advocacy around 10 years ago, and I saw the situation of things on ground. You look at it and you wonder, yes, a lot of work has been done. But why are we still seeing what is happening? Why are women and girls still being sexually exploited? Why is the cases of intimate partner violence still going higher and higher, especially with after COVID-19 pandemic, we started seeing surge in cases of gender-based violence everywhere in Nigeria. It looks like as if though these cases were happening, but people were not reporting. But COVID-19 pandemic, after 2020, a lot of people started speaking out and started sharing the experiences and how GBV is impacting them differently. So yes, I would say that progress has been made. Of course, the awareness levels has increased, but then it's not translating tangibly to behavioral change. Because if it's translating tangibly to behavioral change, it's supposed to reflect in our society. You still see today that women are still being raped. Women are still girls are still subjected to female genital mutilation. Even babies below 8 days old are still subjected to female genital mutilation. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest home to child bride in West Africa. We are home to 26.3 million child brides in West Africa. In fact, we own 40% of all the total data. So when you look at this, of course, you can blame it on our population, but the truth is that a lot of investment have been made in Nigeria, a lot of work, advocates are speaking out. Yes, the level of awareness is increasing, but what are people doing about the knowledge they have? Are they translating it to real tangible action on the ground? Are we making real improvement in the community? So I think that would be my lens to that.
So when it comes to preventing violence, against women and girls, and you've mentioned earlier that, it's not only women and girls that are subjected to this, even men, what safeguards should really be in place?
The campaign to end female genital mutilation, to end harmful practices, to end gender-based violence, intimate partner violence has to be championed by the government. The truth is that we rely on a lot of it. These projects comes and they go, they don't stay long. So government must lead and champion it. Safe spaces must be owned by government. Safe spaces where survivors, where people at risk can run to must be owned by government. Rescue lines, toll-free lines must be instituted. So it has to be institutional. at all level of government. And also in policies, we have to look at policies from the angle of gender lens, not just making policies and just assuming that it's generally amidst all people. No, the way it affects women and girls is a bit different. So we have to really look at it. When we talk about school policies, how are we looking at girls' enrollment differently from boys' enrollment? Of course, we also know that in Nigeria, the gap is also very wild in terms of when you look at out-of-school girls compared to out-of-school boys. So we really need to look at gender lens. The change has to be institutional. In terms of intervention, in terms of campaigning, in terms of awareness, it has to be institutional. As long as we continue to rely on aid, as long as we continue to rely on external people to come and solve our own problem for us, we are really not going to move forward. So if I'm going to say it in one word, government has to lead it. Beyond all of the policies that we've signed that we are not seeing tangible implementation, things has to really start working. We need to look at our police sector. What are police doing in terms of gender-based violence? How are they responding to cases of gender-based violence? We interface with police department every day. There's a recent case in Oyo State that a student was raped. Till date, we don't know what is happening. Nobody is talking to us about that case. What is this sector doing? Is it external people that will come and solve this for us? No, it has to be institutional, and that is what we're talking about. How long does it take us to respond to get justice for a case of sexual and gender-based violence? At times it takes years. 2 years, we are still on some of the cases, and they keep postponing and postponing. How can we shorten this duration for survivors to have justice and to find peace? How can we ensure that our society is sane and is devoid of all forms of harm? So we need to really own this campaign. We need to really own these interventions. We need to really own this fight to end gender-based violence, and it has to be institutional. Every sector, from the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs to the police, to civil defense, to law enforcement agents, other law enforcement agents, to the justice sector, different institutional mechanism to ensure that survivors are protected. Trauma-informed decision has to be considered. And also when we were making policies, of course, I heard that the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Representative Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, mentioned that there's going to be a national policy on gender-based violence and all of that. We have a lot of policies. We have reproductive health policy, national policy on ending female genital mutilation. So it goes beyond just making all of this policy and then wait for some external people to implement for us. How can we begin to also track the implementation ourselves as a people and as a government? Government need to invest more. Look at the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, which champions all activities related to gender-based violence. Is the most underfunded ministry in Nigeria. So how can we begin to put our resources in where we think the problems are? And this is one of the major issues, and we really have to tackle it. If we are able to really look at it systemically, then we'll be able to make progress, significant progress. But the problem is that we've always been relying on hate, and hate comes, they go, projects end, community go back to their normal way of life. But if the government leads the campaign and say, this is what I want, this is what should be obtainable in this community, we begin to see meaningful changes. We have a lot of laws. Look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law, for example. As good as that law is, we understand that, okay, it can be amended, but why repeal the law? This is the only instrument that women and girls rely on for protection from all forms of gender-based violence. Even the law is not well implemented. I was working on a case of female genital mutilation, and people don't even judges don't even know about the law, and it's so sad that they don't know that. I beg to differ. I'm saying this on the live TV. This is what we experience.
Dr. Costley. Yes, I understand, it's a very passionate issue talking about, the safety of women and girls in the country. Thank you so much. We have to actually leave it at that. Thank you so much, Dr. Costley Aderibe Saba, the Executive Secretary, Global Youth Consortium Against FGM. Thank you always for your time.
Thank you so much, Laya. Thank you for having me.
Let's move now to politics in Uganda. Opposition figure Ingrid Turinawe has led a protest calling for the release of prominent opposition leader Dr. Kizza Besigye, and this was after his arrest late last week. Addressing protesters, Ms. Turinawe has called his detention illegal and politically motivated, further stating that if he is not released on December 2nd, activities countrywide will continue. Well, Dr. Besigye was once President Yoweri Museveni's ally and personal physician during the 1980s Bush War. Mr. Besigye became his critic and contested the presidency several times. He was reportedly abducted in Nairobi, Kenya, and taken to a military facility in Kampala last week. Opposition members accused President Museveni's government of using military courts to punish political opponents, and this is a claim the government has denied. Kenya's government is also denying involvement in Besigye's detention and says it is investigating the matter. Welcome back to the program. The International Conference on Conjoined Twins has come to an end in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, leaving medical experts, theatre and nursing staff more fulfilled than when it started. Well, our correspondent Amarachi Ubani reports from Riyadh.
It has been 2 days of 4 daily sessions covering all aspects of conjoined twins care, pre-surgery to post-op to rehabilitation in the long run.
We do plain x-rays, we do CT scan, we do MRI.
Surgeons from top hospitals worldwide address colleagues on procedures that have improved multidisciplinary approach to separating conjoined twins.
As we begin to talk about these case managements in anesthesia in our department, we identify a team of anesthesia care providers that will be managing these patients. And the goal is to have this team identified and stick with the babies until the eventual separation. Due to the knowledge that these children will be coming for different procedures, which would include tissue expansion, or first prior to that, CT studies or radiological studies like MRI, they might need some sedation, might need anesthesia. We want to identify a team that would be assigned to those babies from the beginning.
For Saudi Arabia, techniques and know-how have improved over the last 30 years.
Every time there has been an improvement, not only in the know-how, not only in the techniques, but also in the technology. And with the commissioning of King Abdullah Specialized Children's Hospital and the technology in the hospital and the dedicated operating room and digitalization, I see it's not far from being here, or whether it is related to the utilization of 3D printer, which is very quite easily possible if it's not there already, and also the utilization of the virtual technologies.
Experts from different countries shared their experiences and thoughts.
Back home in South Africa, we have our own conjoined twins programs, and it's done either in Cape Town and will be soon done in Johannesburg as well. The last one we did in 2021. And what I've learned from this conference is how humanity can come together, like different countries and different specialists, doctors and everybody else, to make something happen.
When the keynote speakers speak of the insufficient funds, technology coming from their countries, she said that the Saudi government was the one who supplied these things on them. And as a citizen of this country, it's just it's a glorious feeling knowing that this country does not only take care of its citizens, but also the rest of the world.
We have four now independent children who separated. Oh, well, they are doing great, especially for this who underwent this last year. They are still in Saudi, but thank God, I'm traveling with them when I'm going back to Tanzania. So even the mother can't wait. She has been here for 3 years.
Conference over. It's time to head back to continue the good work of separating conjoined twins, making what was once deemed impossible, possible. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
As the U.S. prepares for a new presidential administration in January of 2025, many African countries are concerned how it might affect their relations with the world power. Well, Nigeria is no exception. Our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, spoke with the CEO, President of Nigerian Diaspora's Chamber of Commerce, regarding how this new administration may impact the most populous nation in Africa.
Not just for Trump to want to form a relationship or build a relationship with my country. Another is for my country to be able to also think of things that can also benefit the people that they are serving. So it's okay for Trump to say America first. We want presidents and governors and head of states that will say Nigeria first. Very, very important. In the area of the counterterrorism partnership, the U.S. also provided, military training, intelligence support, reinforcing Nigerians' effort to combat extremism and things like that. So, I'm also thinking that, that may continue. He may come back with that. He may also work with Nigeria on that. Public health, in regards to public health funding and support. With the U.S. at the time maintained its significant funding for health programs in Nigeria, especially under the President's emergency plan for AIDS. However, there were cuts. Broader international aid during Trump's tenure raised concerns about the sustainability of public health initiatives. So Trump is known to say American first. I don't think it's good for countries to collaborate. It's good for countries to help one another, but the country that is being helped should also, find a way to stand their ground. We can't just keep waiting year after year, administration after administration for foreign aids. Nigeria is a great country. Nigeria is a giant of Africa, despite all odds. So it is high time for our governments, our presidents, our leaders to wake up, stand up, and begin to, work for the country, as opposed to just waiting for handouts. A country where the presidents, the governors, and people, leaders go to other to the developed world for medical attention. People won't take you serious. So this new administration, might do the same thing. Might cut down on public health initiatives and support and all that.
A Human Rights Watch report says Mozambique security forces killed at least 10 children and injured dozens of others while trying to suppress weeks of protests following a disputed presidential election. According to the agency, security forces detained hundreds of other minors, some of them for days, in violation of international law since election results were announced a month ago. Mozambique has been plagued by unrest since the ruling party's candidate was declared the winner of the October 9 election in defiance of the opposition's claims of fraud and international observers' criticism of the vote. Mozambican authorities have not given out details on how many people have been killed or detained in the protests, but admits some of the demonstrations turned violent and had to be quelled by security forces. Windhoek is the vibrant capital of Namibia, and it's buzzing with anticipation ahead of its most competitive election since independence in 1990. The city, whose name means windy corner in Afrikaans, is at the heart of a nation poised for potential change after 34 years of rule by the SWAPO party. Namibians will be casting their ballots on Wednesday, November 27th, in an election that could see the country's first female president in the person of SWAPO's candidate, Netumbo Ndani Ndaitwah, or its first transition of power to a new party since the country gained independence from apartheid South Africa in 1990. The front-runner among 14 opposition candidates is Panduleni Itula, a former dentist who won 29% of votes in the 2019 election after splitting from the ruling SWATO party, and now leads a new political party, the Independent Patriots for Change. Well, the country is currently led by interim President Nangolo Mumba, who took over in February after the death of former President Hage Geingob, but he is not contesting the election. We'll definitely give you updates on the election happening in Namibia tomorrow, Wednesday, but that's where we'll be ending the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.